Dr. Meenakshi Jain ji, welcome back to the podcast. Always an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Most welcome, ma'am. So, we are going to discuss The Flight of Deities, another book that I still haven't read. I apologize for not reading that yet. So, can you please, first of all, introduce this book? What is the book about? And then we can
Yes.
delve deeper into it.
Actually, I have been a student of medieval Indian history for decades.
Yes.
And I've also taught in Delhi University. And as I delved more and more into the subject, what was most striking was the absolute disparity between what I read and what I taught.
Okay.
So that compelled me to delve deep into the subject and to try to understand the reason for this dichotomy between what I was teaching and what I was reading.
Okay.
And that is when I became aware of the magnitude of the deception, if I can use that word, perpetuated deliberately by a small section of historians. And I would just like to explain this deception and why it happened.
Yes.
You see, we all know that India was partitioned on religious lines.
Yes.
There is no dispute and debate about that any longer. What is also very astounding is that the majority of the people who wanted partition, who voted for partition, actually did not migrate to Pakistan.
Yes.
They stayed behind.
Yes.
And that is also not a subject of debate anymore because scholars have even presented the percentage of people who voted for Pakistan and who stayed behind. So, an overwhelming number of people who wanted partition opted to stay behind in India.
Yes.
So, this was the situation soon after independence.
Yes.
Now, at that time, we have the rise of what we can loosely call left historians or Marxist historians.
Yes.
And the genesis of that school of historiography was in Aligarh Muslim University.
Okay.
Now, Aligarh Muslim University, they were in the forefront of the Pakistan demand.
Yes.
So, and they were left in India. So, what was the immediate provocation for them to turn to medieval Indian history? It was the provocation that the majority who wanted partition had stayed behind.
Okay.
So, what was the most abiding memory of the Arab and Turkish advent into the subcontinent? You ask anyone, whether literate or illiterate, whether a student of history or not a student of history, tell me one thing that you know about the medieval period.
Yeah.
They will say, massive destruction of our temples.
Yes.
So, this was the abiding memory, popular memory. Now, how to counter this memory was one of the objectives of the Aligarh school.
Okay.
And the founder of this movement was Professor Muhammad Habib.
Okay.
He's the father of Professor Irfan Habib.
I see.
So, Professor Muhammad Habib was the first person to venture into this field in a very serious manner.
Okay.
And he wrote a small but very influential book. It was Mahmud of Ghazni.
Okay.
Mahmud of Ghazni occupies a special place in the popular Indian memory.
Yes.
He is associated with 16 invasions and massive destruction.
Yes.
But Muhammad Habib's agenda was to show that religion had nothing to do with Mahmud Ghaznavi's invasions.
I see.
So he said that Mahmud of Ghaznavi was motivated by the greed of a robber. This is the words that he used, the greed of a robber.
Is merely a robber.
Merely a robber.
Okay.
So, of course, that book became very influential and it, acquired a cult status in AMU and other
It
universities
became very influential in what circles?
in the academic circle.
In the Indian
Yes,
academic circle.
Indian academic circle.
Okay.
And that became the way that you have to teach medieval Indian
I
history.
see.
So that no invasion, no attack on temples had anything to do with religion.
I see.
It was only economic motives.
Okay.
The greed of a robber, as Muhammad Habib put it.
Mhm.
Of course, at that time, maybe it was, maybe many people lacked the courage to challenge this point of view.
Okay.
Because it was so ridiculous that it could have been demolished easily at the time the book made its advent.
Uh-huh.
How could it have been demolished? It could have been demolished by the simple argument that how is it that temples, the same temples, were attacked again and again when there was no vestige of any wealth left in them?
Yes.
And how is it that Mahmud Ghaznavi claimed the status of a Ghazi?
Ghazi, that's an interesting term.
So he said, and he's the first person in the Muslim world to have been accorded the designation of Sultan in recognition of his services to Islam.
Okay.
So how can you ignore all these?
What does Ghazi mean, by the way?
Holy warrior.
Holy warrior.
He had gone to infidel lands,
Okay.
waged holy war in defense of his faith.
Okay.
So, and India was the land par excellence of idolatry.
Yes.
Every place, every square inch of this subcontinent,
Yes.
smacked of idolatry,
Yes.
which was a great, crime as far as Islam
Anathema
was.
to them, yes.
Yeah. So this is the way it was.
Okay.
Now, then this argument, which was initiated by Muhammad Habib, it was taken up by subsequent scholars and it extended to subsequent rulers of the subcontinent.
Okay.
And so we have the rise of this left school, which has a very impressive body of work. And some of the things that they did was, first of all, de-emphasize the role of religion.
Okay.
And to say that economic factors were always the motivating factors in historical development and evolution, and religion had no role to play in the entire medieval period.
Okay.
So this is one aspect. Then the point is, at some point, they continued the attack and they said that, people are making much of this attack on Hindu temples. So they made two arguments, which I would like to address today.
Certainly.
One was that Hindu rulers, before the Islamic advent, were regularly demolishing, the temples of their rivals and desecrating images of their rivals.
I see.
This is the first point.
Okay.
And second point, they said that this so-called Hindu trauma at temple destruction is actually, there is no evidence of it. Because if the Hindus were traumatized, they would have left some literary record. How is it that there is no record of that period which talks about Hindu trauma?
Okay.
So this is a British manufactured debate
Okay.
to create division between the two communities.
Okay.
So I would now like to address these points.
Yes.
They said that the Hindu rulers repeatedly, desecrated images of their rivals. In the entire period before the Islamic advent, I think there is only one evidence that I can cite, which I will explain why. There is no evidence of Hindu kings ever desecrating the images of their rivals. The first case of image appropriation, you'll be surprised to know, is of the 2nd century BC.
2nd century BC, okay.
So
That's a long time ago.
that's long time ago.
Yes.
And it it refers to a King Kharvela
Kharvela.
in Orissa. And there's an inscription of his which has survived.
Okay.
Hathi Gumfa inscription.
Yes.
It is on the top of a cave. And that inscription says that, King Kharvel, he marched to Magad.
Magad.
And he marched in the palace of the king of Magad. Because that king of Magad previously had come to Orissa and taken an image of Kaling Jin.
Kalinga Jin.
Which means a Jinnah, a Jain Tirthankar from Kalinga.
Okay.
So that inscription says that the king of Magad had come to Orissa, taken back Kaling Jin and put it in his palace, and this King Kharvel marched to the palace and brought back that image.
Well, where's the desecration there?
So that is exactly the valid point that you have raised. Neither that Magad king desecrated that image, neither
They actually treated it as something that's very valuable.
And venerable.
Venerable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the first evidence. Then there are so many cases that I'll just cite one or two.
Yes.
The Pallav king, he defeated Pulakesin II in the Battle of Vatapi.
Okay.
And his general brought back from Vatapi an image of Ganesh.
Okay.
And he took it to his village near Thanjavur and got it consecrated in a temple.
Okay.
642.
642 CE.
And it remains in worship in that temple till today.
Well, once again, where's the desecration?
So where is the desecration?
It's an object worthy of worship.
Worthy of worship. Then, there is another example that I can give you. The Kalchuri king. He had a fight he entered into a battle with the king of Orissa.
Okay.
Got back a very valuable image of Kalia.
Okay.
Nag Kalia. And he dedicated that image to a temple of Shiv in Gujarat, where he had earlier donated a rath.
Okay.
Again, no. All right. Then we have a very interesting case of a king of the dynasty that ruled Khajuraho. So, Yashovarman was the name.
Yashovarman.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
So, he built a beautiful temple. You can still see the temple there. The image is not there.
Okay.
So, that was in honor of Vaikuntha Vishnu.
Okay.
So, that Vishnu or Lakshman temple is still there. That image had changed hands between 6 rulers of 6 dynasties.
Okay.
None of them desecrated it. And then this temple was built again, honoring that image.
Okay.
We've all heard of Krishna Deva Rai,
Yes.
the king of Vijayanagar.
Yes.
He also went to war with the king of Orissa, brought back a Krishna image.
Okay.
And he consecrated that image in a Krishna temple in Hampi.
Okay.
And that inscription you can still see on the walls of Hampi.
Okay.
So there also, there is no evidence.
Desecration.
So what happens is that what you can make out from this, that it is a shared sense of sacred.
Indeed.
So, now the late Professor Nagaswamy, he, gave me a text which he said will be helpful to understand this phenomena. And that text said that before a war, it is incumbent on the aggressor king to evacuate women, children, aged, animals to safer places so that they are spared the ravages of war. And he said, that text says that it is incumbent on the victorious king to retrieve images from the defeated king and take them to his kingdom so there is no disruption in worship of those deities.
Okay.
And the defeated king is denied divine protection of those deities, but there is no disruption in the worship of those deities.
Okay.
And it is incumbent on the defeated king to try to bring back those images within 3 years.
I see.
So, these rules were very, very well laid out.
Okay.
And they were very normally adhered to by kings across the spectrum in India. So there are one or two cases which I can mention. One is of King Harsh of Kashmir. He is called by Kalhan Turshk king.
The Turkic king. The Turkic king.
Because he had many Turks in his army.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there was the creeping advent of Islam.
Okay.
So Kalhan seems to imply that he was influenced by this behavior and gives him the title of Turkish king.
Okay.
So that is one rare example.
Okay.
Leftist scholars normally cite the case of King Shashank of Bengal. He is supposed to have been very anti-Buddhist.
Okay.
But this R.C. Majumdar, who has studied this king in great detail, he said that Hyun Sang was in favor of Harsha because Harsha was patronizing Buddhism and was his friend.
Okay.
And he tried, and Shashank was engaged in a power struggle with King Harsh.
Okay.
So he gave him a bad name. R.C. Majumdar says this kind of animosity was rare in ancient period.
Okay.
So these are some of the, examples that I can cite to refute the argument that murti vandalism, destruction of murtis was an established practice in the Indian subcontinent and the Turks only followed established subcontinental practices.
So that's the narrative that's been built up.
Yes, this is a travesty of the truth and it is an attempt to, whitewash the sins of a particular ideology and a particular community. And they have no qualms in misrepresenting facts to suit their agenda. So that is point number one.
Okay.
Now the second point is that whoever is writing the history of medieval India, whoever means modern historians, post-independence historians,
yes,
they have, given such importance to Persian sources.
Okay.
How is it that native voices of that period don't figure in that discourse?
That's interesting.
Why? Because those native voices, they show such deep involvement and association and identification with the culture and civilization of this subcontinent and how people across spectrums identify with this indigenous civilizational heritage. So you want to say that there was no identification with this land. Just because the invaders did not identify with this land did not mean that the people of this land did not identify.
Yeah.
I'll give you one or two examples of this. But before that, I need to tell your viewers that, the Arab and Turks were not the only foreign rulers India had.
Indeed.
In the ancient period, we had many dynasties which were of foreign origin.
Yes.
Ruling over northwestern India,
Yes.
Punjab, all the way to Gujarat, Maharashtra.
Indeed.
None of them, without any exception, imposed a foreign belief system on the people of the subcontinent.
Indeed.
In fact, they all embraced the traditions of this subcontinent. Some became Buddhist. There's even an inscription from Mathura which talks of a Greek family becoming Jains.
Okay.
So, and so many became followers of Vishnu, Shiva.
Yes, indeed.
Now the whole narrative changes only in the medieval period.
Yes.
So that is what we have to study. Now, what are these native voices which talk about identification, association, and struggle for this civilization? Surprisingly, the first account, and many of the accounts have perished. We have to recognize that.
Yes.
The first account that has survived is from Gujarat. The person was a minister in one of the courts of Gujarat.
Okay.
And he was a witness to Mahmud Ghaznavi's devastations in Gujarat.
Okay.
So the full text has not survived, but he lists the cities that Mahmud Ghaznavi destroyed.
Okay.
And then he writes that when he was on his way back, he saw a beautiful temple and he said, this, how can I let it be?
A thing of beauty, how can I let it be?
Yeah, so I have to desecrate the image and destroy the temple.
Okay.
So this person writes that, Mahmud Ghaznavi could not uproot that image.
Okay.
He got ropes and elephants, but that image could not be uprooted.
Okay.
As a historian, I'm not concerned about the veracity whether Mahmud Ghaznavi could uproot that image or not. But I regard it as a text of great importance because it is the first narrative of resistance that I've come across.
Okay.
So, so to pretend that there was no resistance
Yes.
is grossly untrue.
Indeed.
The next text that I would like to talk about, it is written in 1333.
Okay.
It has survived intact. It has been translated.
Okay.
And it has been available well before independence.
Okay.
So there is no reason why it should not have figured in the historical texts written by historians after independence.
Okay.
Now this is, the text is called Vivid Tirtha Kalpa.
Okay.
Now this person, he actually goes to as many places as he can in northern India that had been devastated by the attacks.
Okay.
And in each place, he tells the devotee that, don't lose heart. Even if your images have been desecrated, they remain as powerful as before. So you continue to worship those desecrated images.
Okay.
Can you imagine? In today's day, we don't worship a desecrated image.
Yes.
But those extraordinary times demanded extraordinary thought. There was no time to carve out images again.
Yes.
Then how long it will take, and then there'll be no worship till that time.
Yes.
And if so many temples are devastated, then you mean to say that worship will come to an end? He said, no, continue worshipping. So these, we must appreciate the kind of, what shall I say, statesmen or thinkers, intellectuals with such wisdom and foresight. That, they said, continue worshipping, don't. There are so many texts that were written at that time. They're debating about what to do. So there is one text which says that, if there is an attack, then you bury the image with great reverence in a carefully prepared pit. And then, transfer that divine energy of that murti to grass.
Okay.
And in lieu of that murti, you worship the grass as if it is the murti until such a time when you can not you reclaim that image and begin worship again.
Okay.
So, in the entire medieval period, there are at least 12 texts in North India that I know of which discuss and debate on this issue of iconoclasm and what to do in these troubled times.
Okay.
So that shows an entire society grappling with this unprecedented challenge.
Okay.
So to say that there was no response is a travesty of truth. Now, since I've given examples from North India, I'd like to give 2 examples from the South.
Yes.
So all these examples from North India are also what we can call narratives of resistance.
Okay.
Because they are not saying give up your faith.
Resist.
Resist.
Yes.
In whatever way you can. If the murti is not there, worship grass.
Yes.
Imagine that the murti is there and go on circumambulating around it, around that space.
Yes.
Don't surrender that space.
Yeah.
and perform the rituals of the Murti in the absence of the Murti. So, this kind of resilience is one of the reasons why we survived as a civilization in spite of this long centuries of hostile environment. And we should not be squeamish about it. We should admit that barring a few decades here and there, the atmosphere was very, very hostile.
Yes.
And a populace that was actually helpless did not give up. Now, to come to the south, I like to give two examples.
Yeah.
The first is a Sanskrit poem. Only one copy has survived.
Okay.
And it was found by accident by a scholar who had gone to a library in the south to consult a book. And there in that book, embedded in that book, he found these few pages of this Sanskrit poem. It is called Madurai Vijay.
Madurai Vijay.
Madurai because a Muslim sultanate had been established in Madurai.
Okay.
And Vijay means triumph over that Muslim sultanate.
Okay.
It is written by the crown prince of Vijayanagar, Prince Kamben, his wife.
Okay.
Imagine, which means that the responses are coming from every section of society. Now that young princess, where was the need for her to express anguish and to participate in this debate, this civilizational debate? And she's participating in this debate and offering her perspective. So she writes this Sanskrit poem and she says that, Meenakshi, Meenakshi is the Devi of that area. She comes to Prince Kamben in a dream.
Okay.
And she says, can't you see? The Kaveri has turned red with all the blood that has been shed. In the Chidambaram temple, the mridang cannot be heard. It is the howls of animals. The Vedic yagyas, we cannot hear. We just hear, we can just smell rotting flesh. And then she says that, Kamben, I'm giving you the sword of dharma. Get up and restore dharma. This is a young girl of a royal family writing this very evocative poem. So, then we have it as historical evidence that Prince Kamben does defeat the Madurai Sultanate and he re-establishes temple worship in many temples that had been converted into mosques.
I see.
So, what we have neglected is that it was a contest all along the way. It was never a peaceful acceptance of the horror that had overtaken this society.
Yeah.
And all these voices, native voices, eyewitness accounts, contemporary accounts, they don't figure in.
It's so interesting. They've completely sidelined all this.
But I forgot to add one very important thing. Before I come to Tirupati, I was talking about Jin Prabha Suri. He went and said, worship Khandit Murtis.
Yes.
There's a very interesting story about him. It's not a story, it's a fact. You see, in 1192, when Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in the second battle of Tarain, there was a beautiful image that had been made, and a messenger says that the rule of the Turks has begun. Keep away that image, you will not need it. So that image was hidden in sand in a village.
Okay.
So from 1192 till 1333, how many centuries is that?
That's 1,000.
No.
41. 141 years.
For 141 years.
Yeah.
It was hidden in a village, buried under sand.
Under sand.
At some point, we don't know how, that image fell into the hands of the troops of the Sultan of Delhi, Muhammad bin Tughlaq.
Okay.
So it is brought and kept in his treasure house in Tughlaqabad, which is not far from here.
Okay.
Now this Jin Prabha Suri he actually goes to Muhammad bin Tughlaq and says, there is this important image which has been taken to your treasure house and we want it back. He is talking to a mighty sultan. And that sultan asks his people, bring this image from the storehouse. What is this man talking about? So they bring back that image. Sultan looks at that image, then tells Jain Prabhasuri, take it and go.
Okay.
And, Jain Prabhasuri writes that it was consecrated in a small temple, and the joy and the rejoicing that an image has been restored in a temple in Delhi. Should this narrative not find a place in our textbooks?
It's interesting, it does not find a place in the textbooks. It
People don't even know.
I didn't know this.
But it is, these kind of instances. So this is what I was missed out in the north.
Okay.
Then I told you about Madurai Vijay.
Yes.
And now I come to Tirupati.
Okay.
See, all these stories are stories of resistance, but which somehow lead to a positive end. The next story is about Tirupati.
Okay.
We've all heard of Tirupati, the famous temple at Tirupati.
Yes.
In the 16th century, it was under the control of the Golconda Sultan for about a century and a half.
Okay.
So, the only native voice that we hear from Tirupati is a poem written in Telugu. It's 100 verses long,
okay,
but 99 verses have survived.
Okay.
So, one verse is lost. But 99 is enough to get an idea of what the whole thing was about. So, this poem is a poem of lament.
Okay.
So, this young, whoever he is, he's writing to Lord Balaji and saying, can't you see what is happening to your temple, to your sacred home? Thousands of troops are walking in with shoes on. They are desecrating, and you stand there helpless. So, he's going on telling the God that, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. You're so powerful, why don't you intervene? So, this is, and then in the end, he says, I'm so sorry that I've used such harsh language, but I hope you appreciate how I'm feeling.
Yes.
So, this is a narrative which does not end in any kind of victory.
Okay.
But it is also a narrative of resistance.
Yes.
And it is recording eyewitness accounts of events that happen in the lifetime of the person who wrote this poem.
Yes.
So, what I want to say is, first of all, to say that economic factors were at play, as has been alleged by Marxist historians, and that religion had no role to play, is a travesty of the truth. To say that if Hindus were traumatized, they would have written about their trauma. There are so many accounts that are there which talk about the trauma, but which do not figure in the history that has been written after independence. So that is point number 2.
Okay.
Now, I want to go back and discuss the third point.
Okay.
The third point is that when the temples were attacked, there was no way that the temple could have been protected because they were big structures. How do you protect a temple? The priest and the devotees, they don't have weapons, they are not trained warriors.
Yes.
And that's not their cup of tea. So, what is the most important thing in a temple for a priest or a devotee? It is the murti.
Yes.
So, medieval India is a story of the flight of deities.
Okay.
That is the title of my book.
Yes.
Flight means running. So, the deities are on the run.
Okay.
So, I have given some examples from as many parts of India as I could, which I'd like to share with your viewers.
Yes.
The first temple that was attacked was in Multan.
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 Yes.
The Arab armies come under Muhammad bin Qasim. The earlier attempts by the Arab armies all end in failure.
Yes.
So, 75 years they struggled, they could not get victory, but finally Muhammad bin Qasim gets victory. Now, he is told that the wealth of Multan is due to a temple, and that's why it's called City of Gold.
Okay.
So he goes to that temple, and before Muhammad bin Tughlaq, say Qutbuddin Aibak. What am I saying? Before
Muhammad bin Qasim?
Muhammad bin Qasim.
Yes.
Now, before that, I want to say the last eyewitness account that we have of that Sun Temple is by the Chinese traveler Yun Sang.
Okay.
So, Yun Sang actually goes there, he sees the image, describes the image, etc. Gold laden with jewels, and he says kings from all over India send their tribute, people come from all over, such is the sanctity and the honor that the image has among the people.
I see.
So now this image is when this
Qasim.
Mir Qasim, when he goes there, he is told that the wealth of the city is because of this temple.
Yes.
So he goes there, desecrates the image in the sense of hanging a piece of cow's flesh on its neck.
I see.
And he builds a mosque adjoining it.
Okay.
The people save the temple by agreeing to share 1/3 of its revenues with the Arabs.
Okay.
Now, that is what we know about it.
Okay.
Now, Al-Biruni, maybe 2 centuries later,
okay,
he says that a Shia sect came into power,
okay,
and this destroyed the temple and the image.
Gone.
So we think that's the end of the story.
Okay.
But one has to admire the resilience of the believers of this land and their commitment to image worship. So in the 11th century, we have a Moroccan traveler, Idrisi.
Okay.
So he comes to Multan and he says that the people, the temple is thriving and the image is thriving.
Okay.
But he describes the image, it's a wooden image.
Okay.
So the people, they have created a wooden image, but they worship. Because they cannot give up worship. We must remember the importance of image worship in our civilizational heritage. It has become deeply ingrained in our psyche. So they bring a wooden image. The advantage of the wooden image is that they take it away when there's fear of another threat. And then they bring it back when the threat is gone.
And was it at the same location?
Yes.
I see.
Then a next traveler comes. He says that now the worshippers of the image are only left in the temple. That means the rest, they've all disappeared or converted or whatever has happened.
Okay.
And then in the time of Aurangzeb, we have a traveler coming to Sindh saying that the image is being worshipped. Again, that wooden image.
Okay.
Where it went, it's very difficult to put it together. And then we have the order of Aurangzeb destroy the temple. And the ruins of that temple you can see even today.
Still there in Multan?
Yes.
Okay.
And in the British period, they did some excavations at that site and they actually retrieved from there a stone image of the sun god, which is now in a museum in England.
In England? Okay.
So, what to make out of all these? It's almost 1,000 years that you can trace the determination for worshipping sun god in the form of a murti.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. And, this is Muhammad bin Qasim. I'll just, before I move on, I just have one more thing to say about these, leftist historians.
Yes.
They said that Mahmud Ghaznavi only attacked for wealth.
Okay.
Now, in 1950, a team from Italy carried out excavations in Ghazni.
In Ghazni, okay.
Yeah. And among the things that they retrieved was a marble image of the sun god.
Okay.
It was in 4 parts or something.
Okay.
But you could put them
Together.
And you could make out that this is the image.
And where did they find this?
In Ghazni.
In Ghazni. Any specific location in Ghazni?
Now, maybe.
Okay. So not hard to guess, I guess.
Yeah. But what they found surprising was that the image, that the face, the features had not been chopped off.
Okay.
Like in North India, so many images, the neck has been chopped off, as a sign of humiliation.
Yes.
But here, the face was absolutely flat. There were no features on the face.
Smooth, you mean?
Yeah.
Smooth.
So then you're very clever. So they explained that millions of people had trod on that image on their way to a prayer hall, and that face had been flattened with the thousands or lakhs of people who had trod on that face.
Okay.
So the images that I told you that they're being, exchanging from one ruler to another, none of this story is reported in any Hindu king. That they are from Orissa, they are taking it to their hometown, worshipping. None of those stories that I gave you of ancient period had this thing that the images, people are walking upon that image.
Absolutely not. You can't imagine that happening.
Can't imagine that happening.
No.
In the medieval period, the story is chop off the neck, nose, or mass scale vandalism.
Yes.
And this kind of, storming on the face of an image. This is the sad story of the medieval period. You can deny till the cows come home, but you cannot wish away this fact. Now, to move to other parts of India, North India, I will, discuss Mahmud Ghaznavi.
Yes.
Because he was the one who did large-scale destruction, initial destruction. Then so many people followed.
Yes.
The Lodhis, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb.
Yes.
Then even Abdali.
Okay.
So there is no end to it. But as a result of Mahmud Ghaznavi's invasion, 9th invasion of Mathura, for 21 days, the invasion lasted for 21 days.
Okay.
So you can imagine
the horrors. Yes.
So that story is repeated everywhere. But I want to come to something that dramatic happens after the vast devastation in North India by Mahmud Ghaznavi and the illustrious successors who followed him.
Okay.
So now I am going to talk about Mathura.
Okay.
Braj, Govardhan.
Okay.
It's all Krishna belt.
Yes.
Now, it's surprising that in the 13th century, a Telugu Brahmin from Telangana comes to Braj. And it is that commitment to your heritage. Why should he come from Telangana all the way to Braj?
Yes.
Then next 14th century, we have another Telugu Brahmin, Madhavendra Puri. He also comes to Braj and he actually establishes an image of Krishna there.
Okay.
Can you imagine? When the whole place is flattened, you come from
Telangana, all the way south.
And establish an image. Then the next voice that we have is of Vallabhacharya.
Okay.
Vallabhacharya was also a Telugu. And so when you talk about the unity of India,
yes,
the fundamental unity,
yes,
nobody taught them this.
Yeah.
It was that underlying, unity,
Yes.
sense of unity.
Yes.
So, Vallabhacharya came from a family of priests.
Mm.
And when he was going on a all India, he was traveling across India.
Mhm.
And when he was in Jharkhand,
Mm.
a voice came to him. And it said that, I am trapped in this hill in Braj.
Okay.
Kindly rescue me from here and resume my worship.
Okay.
So Vallabhacharya goes to Govardhan and he actually finds that image over there.
Okay.
It's very likely that it was, buried there for safety during some invasion.
Okay.
So he rescues that image and he builds a small shed and then a proper small thing and starts worshipping over there.
Mhm.
So this is the murti of Sri Govardhan Nath
Okay.
that Vallabhacharya establishes in this area.
Okay.
Around that time, Mahaprabhu Chaitanya was in Puri.
Mhm.
So he sends 2 of his disciples and says, go to Braj and find the lost Leela Sthals of Radha and Krishna.
Okay.
The places that were associated with him,
Yes.
with them.
Yes.
They've all been lost because there's nothing left. Now find them and restore them.
Okay.
And Mahaprabhu Chaitanya himself comes to Braj and he finds the Radha Kund which he establishes.
Okay.
Now, this Mahaprabhu Chaitanya's disciples, Roop and Santanam,
Mhm.
they also find it is called self-manifested image. So it means that it could have been buried
Yeah.
somewhere else, but it's not something that they instate. It is something that comes to them.
Okay.
So they built this Govind Dev temple
Okay.
and, they start worshipping over there.
Okay.
And Mirabai,
Hmm.
she also visits this temple before she, goes to Dwarka,
Okay.
the Saint Mirabai.
Okay.
And it is said that Man Singh,
Hmm.
he visited this area with Akbar.
Okay.
And he is so saddened to see the Lord of Gokul in this small little thing.
Hmm.
And he says, I will build a grand temple appropriate to his status.
Hmm.
So he builds that temple. It is completed in 1590.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
And then I will quickly move forward just to continue the story of this, Braj, Mathura, Vrindavan
Yes.
area. Then we'll go to other areas. I'll move backward and forward.
Sure.
So in 1669, the imperial order of Aurangzeb to destroy temples.
Hmm.
So this Braj, Mathura, Govardhan area,
Hmm.
it witnesses what is called flight of deities on a mass scale.
Okay.
Most of them, they rush to Rajasthan because that is the nearest and the safest,
Uh-huh.
because it's not an area that the Mughal troops can easily access
Mhm.
because of the hostility of Rajputs
Yes.
and because of the terrain.
Hmm.
So I talked about Sri Govardhan Nath Ji.
Mhm.
That Govardhan Nath Ji image, it leaves and for 2.5 years it's on the road.
Okay.
And then finally it reaches Nath Dwara.
Nath Dwara.
That is where the cart gets stuck. So they say that let's have it here.
Okay.
And it was the area of Mewar, so they said we are well protected.
Yes.
And what we see and worship today and we go to Nath Dwara
Mhm.
is this image which has been on the run for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Now, when I say that the image has been on the run,
Hmm.
I also have to clarify
Mhm.
that it's not that the image was put in a suitcase and for 2.5 years it was,
Hmm. Transported, yeah.
no. That image has to be worshipped every day,
Okay. Okay.
according to the proper rituals.
Hmm.
So imagine the priests, they're running with the image, but they're making sure that there is no change in the routine of the worship of the image.
Okay.
And means that people along the way are everywhere providing help.
Indeed.
Because priests who are running with the murti, they're not carrying the offerings.
Yeah.
They're not carrying the safety havens where the images will be kept. So all along the way, people are providing. The same happened to the image Govind Dev, which Man Singh had built.
Okay.
So that also leaves, and it takes from 1669 to 1739. How many years is that?
1669 to 1739. That's 70 years.
So
80 years almost.
70 years that image is on the move until it finally reaches Jaipur, where a temple is built for it and where it remains in worship till today.
Okay.
So all along that route, you will find small little temples or temporary sheds.
Okay.
Where the image was kept and where food was and the offerings were arranged and worshipped. And many of those sheds, the image is no longer there. So the villagers have put some other image and continued the worship.
I see. Wow.
So, I mean,
that traces the route.
Yeah. It is so remarkable. And the Rajas, in the case of Govind Dev, we have, many documents which record the land grants that are given in each place for the murti so that worship can continue unimpaired. When we talk about Rajput alliance with the Mughals, we also have to keep this in mind that they were true to their heritage in a very fundamental sense.
Yes.
That they were giving grants all along so that the image reaches and there's no disruption in the worship of the image.
Yes.
So, absolutely marvelous stories that we come across in Rajasthan. Now, in the Nathdwara image, that was the only image of the Vallabh Sampradaya that was 3/4 human size.
Okay.
If you go to Nathdwara, you will see it's 3/4 human size.
Okay.
And it took 2.5 years for it to reach Nathdwara. The other images of the Vallabh Sampradaya were a few centimeters in height.
Okay.
So they were protected and hidden in the turbans of temple servants.
Okay.
Can you imagine? Because turbans, you can hide an image which is a few centimeters.
Yes.
And so the images escaped by being hidden in the turbans of temple servants.
Okay.
What more proof do you want of the resilience of a civilization under extreme stress?
Yes.
When it's battling for life, actually.
Yes.
So this, and maybe one explanation could be the decentralized nature of Hinduism.
Indeed, very much so.
That, if I cannot go to a temple, I can have a murti in my home and worship.
Yes.
So, and who was going to worship at home? Ordinary people.
Yes.
So, the contribution of temple priests, the contribution of rulers like Jai Singh, like the Marathas, the contribution of ordinary people, intellectuals. I mean, it is no section of society that you can exclude from this heroic attempt to save and to nurture and protect this civilization in a time of acute distress. And that acute distress did not last for a few weeks or months or years. It was centuries long.
Yeah, centuries long. Starts with Min Qasim.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So this is what happens. Now, so I gave you these examples that the murtis flee.
Yeah.
They go to. I give you one or two more examples of that civilizational memory. We've all heard of Ujjain, the Mahakal temple.
Yes.
Recently, the corridor has been built around the Mahakal temple, Ujjain.
Yes.
Now, this Mahakal temple was attacked many times and destroyed. And the record of Iltutmish destroying it is recorded in the Persian histories of that time.
Okay.
So there's no dispute about it, because why would Iltutmish say that I have destroyed something which he did not destroy?
Yes.
And there is, the graphic details in the Persian accounts.
Okay.
The temple was built, rebuilt, but again, finally, it was built. Iltutmish is 13 something. It was built in 17 something by a general of the Peshwa.
A general of the Peshwas. Okay.
So can you imagine that we cannot give up the deity? And the temple may have been gone, but we know that there was a temple there.
Yes.
And so we have to reconstruct that temple when we can and bring back the deity home whenever we can. But in all circumstances, we cannot give up the deity.
Yes.
If we have to give up the site for some time, we will still worship the deity until a more congenial period in our history.
Yes.
So this is the story of Ujjain.
Ujjain.
Now, I will discuss the story. I will tell you about Sri Ranganath temple, Meenakshi temple, the Mahalakshmi temple at Kolhapur, and maybe Guruvayur.
Okay.
So these are very interesting stories. So far, we have confined our discussion mainly to North India.
Okay.
In that, of course, I've left out many portions like Somnath, because it's not possible to go into all that.
Yes.
But to come to South India. The first attacks began in the time of Alauddin Khalji with Malik Kafur, his general, attacking. At that time, the people in the south never visualized that there could be a situation when the temple and the murti can be attacked, because that was not a part of the culture of the subcontinent.
Yes.
So the first time Malik Kafur attacked, they were taken totally unawares. And we can only speculate what happened to the murti.
Okay.
All right. When the second attack took place, they were better prepared. So, because they realized that this is what can happen. So, what they did was that, that reclining Vishnu image, they constructed a wall in front of it.
Okay.
So that the invader thinks that there is nothing behind. The temple has ended where the wall is there. And they ran away with the processional murti.
Okay.
And what difficulties they had. So many people died. So many manuscripts which they tried to take with them. Those manuscripts were so important for them. They all got lost.
Okay.
So after a lot of struggle and difficulty, they managed to reach Kerala because the Sultanate armies had not penetrated that far.
Okay.
So when they reached Kerala, they were shocked to discover the priests of so many temples with their murtis had also come to Kerala.
Okay. It was a safe haven.
Imagine. I mean, I really wonder at any other civilization having survived after having undergone all this.
Yes.
So many civilizations outside India, they went through what we went through.
And they've been
wiped out.
Yeah.
But imagine, so they reach Kerala and they find priests of so many temples. Now, it's a very long story which has been very faithfully recorded in the temple Mahamatyas of Sri Ranganath temple.
Okay.
Now, every temple has a temple text which records the history of that. And unfortunately, in our modern day narratives or history accounts, we have just not taken note of these authentic voices. Why should we write history on the basis of foreign accounts and foreign interpretations?
Yeah.
Why don't our voices find a place?
Yeah.
Because the point is that the people struggled. So many lost their lives.
Yes.
They should get at least a footnote in our history books. So finally, to cut the long story short, this temple Mahamatya discusses this whole trial of the image.
Okay.
It's all beautifully recorded.
Okay.
Of course, we have to, discount certain facts because, we have to subject it to some kind of scrutiny.
Yes.
But the point is we should at least look at it.
Yes.
So finally, the image manages to reach Tirupati.
Okay.
Because Tirupati was also Vaishnav temple.
Yes.
And Sri Ranganath was also.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go to Tirupati, you will find a small temple or a room, a Rangamandap.
Rangamandap.
After Sri Ranganath.
Okay.
And it is recorded in the Tirupati Chronicles that, he is the revered guest of Lord of Tirupati.
Okay.
And whatever bhajans he likes, those will be sung first in the morning.
Okay.
The food that he likes, that will be prepared. The kind of, you honor a guest.
Yes, yes.
So all that is recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And that room is still there. I've been to Tirupati. That room is not used now.
Okay.
But it's there. Rang Mandap is there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at some point, one of the zamindars or feudal lords comes to Tirupati on a darshan.
Okay.
And when he comes to the for a darshan, he's shocked to see Sri Ranganath there.
Mm.
So he tells the Tirupati priest, "Bhai, this is my lord.
Mm.
How was it here?" So they explained that priest brought him. So he says, "I have to take this deity back to Sri Ranganath, which is his temple."
Okay.
So they say, okay. So this feudal lord or zamindar, whatever you may call him, he brings back that Sri Ranganath image, keeps it in his territory for some time, and at a more opportune moment, he reinstates it in the Sri Ranganath temple.
Okay.
And in the Sri Ranganath temple wall, there is an inscription that I am the one who brought back Sri Ranganath from Tirupati on this date in this year.
Okay.
So imagine the journey of Sri Ranganath from Ranganath temple to Kerala to Tirupati and back.
Okay.
I mean, it's very difficult to visualize that such things actually happened.
Yes.
It seems like a story, but it's not a story. It's generations who sacrificed their lives for this. Now to come to the Meenakshi temple. So Meenakshi temple, the Prime Minister went there recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Meenakshi temple, this is all recorded in temple literature, and much of it I've quoted in my book Flight of Deities.
Okay.
So what happens is that in the Meenakshi temple, again the priests, they construct an artificial wall in front of the ling.
Okay.
So the invader thinks that the temple has ended over there, and they put a substitute ling in front of the wall.
Okay.
So that ling is, if it has to be attacked, that will be attacked.
Okay.
And that ling is still preserved in the temple and bears the marks of the attacks of swords.
Okay, I see.
Okay. And the Murti of Meenakshi, they transport it up on the Gopuram.
Okay.
How they did it.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. So that is the way they saved the temple.
Okay.
The main ling and the Murti of Meenakshi.
Okay.
So, thinking on your feet, and imagine priests who are all the time only remembering prayers and chanting prayers, resorting to these tactics.
Yes.
What a multi-dimensional thinking.
Yes.
In the case of the Chidambaram temple,
okay,
the temple records are there.
Okay.
And they say that in the 17th century, for 37 years, the murtis were taken out of the temple. They were taken out of the temple because of the threats. So the temple priests arranged for the murtis to leave the temple.
Okay.
And they were hidden in jungles.
In jungles. Okay.
Actually, they were hidden in a hollow tree, and the tree was concealed. So that no inquisitive person, there was a tree by chance that was hollow.
Okay.
And they hid the murtis in that and covered the tree.
Okay.
So, and how it was retrieved, that has also been very well documented in the texts.
Okay.
Now, in the time of the Anglo-French rivalry, again that area was under stress. So again the images were removed for safety, and they were out of the temple for almost 15 years.
Okay.
So for this Chidambaram temple, it is recorded. The flight of deities from Chidambaram temple is recorded with the exact dates on which the images were not there and when they came back.
You mentioned the Anglo-French rivalry.
Yeah.
Did the Europeans also desecrate murtis?
In the case of one or two temples, especially in the case of the Chidambaram temple, they did not desecrate murtis.
Okay.
But the temple premises came under fire, crossfire.
Crossfire, okay.
Yes. They did not desecrate images. In fact, the British, they got the designation of being Dai. Dai is the wet nurse of Sri Jagannath temple. Okay. Because they were patronizing. So the Christian missionaries were very angry at the British officials, protecting and patronizing temples. Okay. And they wanted the government, the East India Company, to withdraw from this.
I see.
So the role of the British in the initial years was very favorable to him.
Before the missionaries were actually brought in big force.
Yes.
What about the French? I believe they've destroyed a few temples.
Yes.
Pondicherry, southern India.
Yes, and the Portuguese
of course.
Portuguese, it's well documented.
The Portuguese, very much so.
Very well documented.
Yes.
In many of these recent works that have come in. The Portuguese, I think they have been the worst.
Indeed, no doubt about that.
There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
I think I may not be wrong if I say that the British were the most benign. Okay. As far as this attack on culture is concerned. Okay. They had their other problems. Yes. Which we can discuss at some other point.
Indeed.
They did turn India upside down.
Yes.
But their intention in the beginning was not to turn India upside down. They were admirers of Indian culture and civilization. Later things got complicated because the advent of missionaries and so many other factors.
Yes.
So this is what happened. Now in the case of the Mahalakshmi of Kolhapur, she was a very revered deity. And the most detailed account of Mahalakshmi of Kolhapur is by Major Graham. He was the British officer in charge of this area.
Okay.
So he's written a detailed account of how Mahalakshmi of Kolhapur had to take refuge in the houses of her devotees and priests to escape from the attacks.
Okay.
And I think this began in the 13th century. And then he writes, Major Graham writes, that, on orders of Chhatrapati Shambhaji, Mahalakshmi was finally restored.
Okay.
And the celebrations when Mahalakshmi is coming back to her abode after so many centuries of exile.
Okay.
These are many, many, fascinating stories that are there. As a teacher of history at Delhi University, I was, first of all, not aware of any of this.
Okay.
It was never in my syllabus. Actually, I began to discover history after I left my job as a teacher. Because, that just shows the extent to which whitewashing was successful.
Yes.
Me coming from a nationalist family was actually very unaware of many of these things. So, what it means is that the civilizational recovery is a very long drawn out process. And though, of course, we have taken major strides in recent decades, there's a long way still to go.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I would like to give the example of Guruvayur temple.
Yes.
In Kerala.
Mhm.
It was attacked by Hyder Ali
Mm.
and Tipu Sultan.
Mhm.
And I have documented how the temple was saved on each occasion.
Okay.
At first by some mysterious donor who we don't know, who
Okay.
came and gave money
Uh-huh.
to Hyder Ali. And later on, when they attacked, the murtis, they were taken away.
Mm.
And once the temple was ordered to be burned down, how torrential rains came
Okay.
and saved the temple.
Uh-huh.
So all in all, I can say it's a painful,
Mm.
long drawn out
Mhm.
phase of our history,
Yes.
which if we forget at our peril.
At our peril, indeed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is where I would like to.
Right. So, final question: the entire, all these things that you have described, that's what forms the core of the book, right?
Yes.
Now, these Marxist historians, they have succeeded in essentially whitewashing all of this out of
Yes.
our history books.
Yes.
Is there any effort being made to actually address this problem?
No.
Okay.
See, the thing is that the Marxists remain entrenched in the universities.
Even today, they have a stranglehold
Even today.
on the system.
Yes, because though they may have taken a back seat,
Mm.
their students
Mm.
have taken their place.
Their students have taken the place. Yes.
The only thing is that their students don't have the eminence of the earlier Marxists,
Uh-huh.
and their students are not interested
Hmm.
in taking the war up front.
Okay.
Like, the earlier group like R.S. Sharma, D.N. Jha,
Mhm.
Irfan Habib, Romila Thapar, they took on that ideological battle publicly.
Mhm.
Now, this second generation of Marxist historians
Hmm.
is not interested in engaging in this battle publicly.
Okay.
They have retreated in the sense that they don't discuss these issues.
Okay.
But they occupy the places, the publishing houses remain under their control,
Okay.
and the syllabus
Hasn't changed
hasn't changed
much. Nothing significant, I would expect.
nothing significant.
So we're still teaching the same old whitewashed history to our kids.
See, what we are teaching, I don't know now because I, gave up my job a long time ago, which I think was a very good thing that I did because the discovery of Indian history began with that.
Mhm.
But the other thing that I feel is that, there are not too many professional historians who have ventured into this field from a non-left perspective.
Mhm.
So, we have to produce that body of literature
Yes.
for it to make a dent.
Mhm.
How many non-left historians can one count?
Hardly any.
So the point is that when you have a body of work, then only you can be making a dent.
I can give the example of Dr. B.B. Lal. He
Yes.
produced a voluminous body of work.
But he
and
is
he was
not in any syllabus.
marginalized.
He is not in any syllabus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on a positive note, I think that what has turned the tables is the social media.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And podcasts like yours, they reach lakhs and lakhs of people who are not students of history,
Yes.
who don't need to be students of history.
Yes.
Because everyone doesn't have to be a historian.
Not at all.
But the reach that the podcasts have, they have enabled lakhs of people to get a glimpse of alternative history, which is waiting in the wings to occupy center space.
Yes.
When it will occupy the center space, it doesn't matter. But people are becoming aware and they're waiting for that history to occupy center stage.
Indeed. Ma'am, thank you so much once
Thank
again
you.
for all the work that
Thank
you do.
you. Thank
and
you so
please
much.
keep doing that.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.